Hey everyone, welcome back to your usual Howling Report. This is I, your lovable host, Ryan. So today I've decided that after Saga of the Beast that we've finally come to some interesting new developments. So one of the things I've noticed, and that a lot of Space Wolf players have complained about, is that the introduction of what am I looking at here? Is that the introduction of Space Wolves has been a little, has felt a little lackluster. Now, one of the things is that a lot of people have been wondering, a lot of players have been wondering, why can't they just have their transports move and then they can get out and charge, or why can't they charge 3d6, or why they simply can't charge 3d6? Now, or basically what they can do, or what they could do is say, okay, why don't we use the specialist detachment that came in the Vigilus campaign book? And I'm thinking, because we're like one unit charges and the other can charge behind it and roll 3d6 and pick the two highest. The way I see it is that we haven't been looking at this. I feel that we haven't been looking at this hard enough. So, and I've been going over it in my head a number of times, and I just didn't realize. And last night, I was thinking, oh, you know what? Why don't I remember years ago that I wanted to get a whirlwind tank into my army. Now I'm thinking that's where our problem is. That's the solution to our problem, because the way it is that we may be a melee focused army, but what it is that we don't we design our armies to be exactly melee focused. We want to get our models into the fight. But there's a thing here. If you want to have a melee army, you're going to need to put in the units that can support them. Not as I can buff them up, or save a command point. But what you're trying to do is that you're trying to make sure that you soften the enemy up you soften your enemy up enough that they pose minimal threat. Because it's like, oh, you can't, basically you're gonna have to accept that you can't make an omelet without breaking a few eggs, and meaning that you're gonna have to let your opponent likely kill a couple of models in a squad. Now, the way I see this is that we need to utilize fire support, effective long range artillery like whirlwind tanks, and even using hunter tanks. Now, hunter tanks are going to be an interesting development, because they're not just anti-aircraft tanks. They're also effectively kind of single-shot ballistic missiles that are capable of taking on they're capable of inflicting a lot of damage on an opponent. Strength 9, AP -3 with it is Strength 9, AP -3, D6 damage. And also, if you have a meta, and if you're like your local meta, you're having a lot of players with tanks, with grav tanks. Remember, they have the fly keyword, meaning that you can use, like, say you have a hunter missile. Basically, you have a hunter tank. You fire a Sky Spear missile. It hits on 2s, and also you use the stratagem called Skyfire, so it adds 1 to your hit roll. It adds 1 to your hit roll, and it also adds 1 to your hit roll. It also adds adds 1 to your wound roll. But on an unmodified roll of 6, it doubles the damage that it inflicts. Now you can use that when firing your. Now what you can do is that you can use that when firing your a stalker tank. But like if you use, but basically because of all these grav tanks, they can be easily chewed up by like have. And the thing is that hunter tanks, whirlwind tanks, all these artillery, all these long range artillery tanks are basically cheap. They're incredibly cheap. Um, so you can basically have these models on the field for like you can take a like say you take this have a have a spearhead detachment with a wolf guard battle leader have a spearhead detachment with a wolf guard battle leader with a storm shield and a very cheap power weapon, and you've got yourself and you have three no, like so let's say you have three whirlwinds, two hunter tanks. That's 400 points. That's over 400. That's below 500. That's basically below 500 points right there. And you can set that aside, and you can fill out the other. It's like you're doing 1500 or 1850. You can basically put the rest of the points that you want to do aside for your core army, for like the real heavy hitters. Because what it's supposed to do is to allow your force, is to give your force enough cover fire to allow your tanks to move up, or to provide fire assistance to your outflanking units. Because because remember, the range of whirlwind tanks, missile launchers is 72 inches. And also you've got also the hunters sky spear missiles are 60 inches. So you can basically kind of, if you're effective enough, you can basically level at your opponent's field, like a combination of two I would say two vengeance missiles and one castellan missile tank. And you can basically level out a good position where you've softened up your opponent's infantry, and also you've made it easy to take out your opponent's tanks. So it's like, oh, you don't have to destroy them. Like, you don't have to like commit all three of your. You don't have to, like, to commit all. Like, if you have three hunters, you don't have to commit all three of your hunters to one tank. You can spread it out, and what that does is it softens your opponent's tanks up, and also his units, so that when the units that come in, you can set them up to. You can basically use a lot. Like, I was thinking, a strategy that I was thinking of: 2 units of long fangs. 2 units of long fangs, both in one unit in two drop pods, 1 unit per drop pod, and you have a unit of gray hunters to provide some defensive support. Some defensive support. You can place them on objectives, or you can create a bit of a fire neck, or you can create a bit of like on each side of the board, and create a fire nexus that will I can take out, if like say I've pinned down my opponent's tanks enough so that I can basically fire 2 las cannons at this tank to stop it, to basically knock it out of the game. And that's the first turn. And if you can, or you can basically set it up so that if you're dealing with an opponent who if you have a flyer on the field, you want to provide them as much cover fire for that flyer to get in, to get into the fight, to get into your opponent, close to your opponent's board edge, not board edge, but close to your opponent's deployment zone, and basically take out the heavy weapons that are long range heavy weapons and anti-aircraft weapons that are capable of bringing that your Stormwolf or Stormfang down on the first or second turn, so that they have a chance of basically taking them out and say like, okay, I can now have my tank move, have my flyer move around the field, so that and basically have my flyer move around the field so that it can provide fire support from the board edge. And it's an interesting development that you're gonna have that you have to try it to do, because it's like you can't just, the way it is that it's an equalizer. If you don't have fire support for a melee army, then that melee army is going to be easily cut to pieces. You're making sacrifices to your melee army so that you can oh, I want to get my wolfen in as soon as possible, or I want to have, because it's like we're not utilizing all of the effectiveness. Whereas like because what you're trying to do is that you're trying to, oh, I got, all right, then I'll have my Thunderwolf advance, and the advance, I'll use my rune priests to provide covering, to ride storms, and yeah, that's a good idea, but you're still leaving your army under defended. So it's like long range artillery. So you provide long range artillery. Get some try and get some whirlwinds in. If you want to provide some effective, so it's the way I say this. If you want to provide effective cover, an effective way of assaulting your opponent, softening up the positions across the board, you're going to want to try to use, you're likely going to want to try to use long range artillery that can, in many cases, require very little sight, and maybe a unit, maybe a couple of land speeders to provide some scout ability. But you're gonna have, but it's like it like someone said that what was it? He said that you have to use that without long range, that the Space Wolves are not really melee specialists. They're more of a combined arms. They're more effective as a combined arms army. So basically, you're going to be utilizing because so basically the way it is, the Space Wolves are well-rounded, excellent in melee, so basically they're excellent in melee, good in shooting, and also and good in shooting. So basically you're going to need to provide, so basically they are capable of providing effective destruction at long range, mid range, and in close combat. So we're gonna have to try. So that's why I'm thinking, okay. So that's why I was like, oh, you know what? I'm gonna start off my artillery detachments. I'm gonna start off an artillery detachment. I'm gonna load up with like I definitely want to get 3 missile launchers, because I feel that about 3 whirlwind tanks, because I feel that's not going to be enough. That one's not going to be enough. 2 at minimum, 3 maximum. And I know a lot of people are going for like Forge World, but remember, Forge World can be Forge World can be expensive in money and expensive in points. That Relic Scorpion is 175. That Relic Scorpion is 175 points. So, but you can't. But and also, I looked at its profile. Its missile range is 48 inches. Now, if you utilize Big Guns Never Tire with it, it can count as being stationary, and you can move it and fire its 48-inch range missiles twice. But that's a bit pricey. Some case, because if your opponent manages to take that down turn 2, you're out of missile support there goes your long range fire support. But you may have been able, but basically what you may have been able to do is that what you've done is that you've taken out enough units to provide enough fire support to provide fire, because basically what it is that you can fire at 2 different. It doesn't say anything about, okay, if you fired once, you can fire it basically, but it's like I can likely fire twice, but at 2 different units. So it's powerful, it's effective. So it's like it can cripple a lot. It can basically cripple a lot of your an opponent. And also as a way of a flanking maneuver, what you can do is like second turn assault doctrine is second turn your assault doctrine is active, and what you can end up doing is that you can fire your what is it? Is that like turn 2 you have a unit of gray hunters and a unit of intercessors. All 10 models, all 10 models in each unit. You can have the intercessors outflank with assault bolt with the auto bolt rifles. And what it does is that, and what you can, alongside with the gray hunters. Now with the gray hunters, what you can use is keen senses. No, not keen senses. I forgot what it was. Because with the intercessors, what you can use is steady advance. Use steady advance with the gray hunters, and bolt storm with the auto bolt rifles. And what you can do is you have 5 models from each. You have 5 models in each of the squads. Concentrate fire on an enemy position, whilst to easily provide overlapping fields of fire to take down pockets of enemies. That way, with bolt storm, they're like, if you've got an opponent that's like 12 inches away, you're basically creating a net. You're basically creating a fire and a kill zone for your opponent. Creating a kill zone that your opponent's infantry is having trouble of getting out of. So that's my piece. And I was like, I'm just feeling that this can work for Space Wolves if we just have to know how to tackle it. So I hope you all enjoy it. I'll see if any other strategies I can pluck out of this without the codex, with the Saga of the Beast now. And I finally, because of this quarantine things, is kind of allowing GW to open up their distribution store. So I'm going to be trying to get a hold of. So I don't have I'm not getting the Ragnar. I'm not getting Ragnar the model or the Prophecy of the Wolf box set, but I am getting the Saga of the Beast book. Now let me think. I will try. Now I am kind of saving some money up, so I am going to try to get my hands on a Whirlwind tank and see how this will actually be able to function properly. I'll catch you all later, and happy hunting.